Hey y'all, Script and Critics. I'm here to review the film Metropolis from 1927. That's right, 90 years ago. It was directed by Fritz Lang. It stars Gustav Froelich as Freder, Bridget Helm as Maria, aka she also plays the character Machine Man or Robot Maria. Alfred Abel as Joe Fredersen, Rudolph Klein Rogue as Rotwang, Heinrich George as Grot, and Theodore Luce as Josaphat. Now, this movie is incredibly influential to science fiction as a whole. Pretty much any science fiction property, you can kind of make a 3 degrees of like Kevin Bacon, some kind of connection. One thing that I know as a connection was George Lucas. He made Star Wars, and he highly Ralph McQuarrie as well highly based the design of C-3PO on the the robot of this film. Now, this whole film is about, it's supposed to take place in I think it's supposed to be like the 2020s. I do not expect this history to happen anytime soon, because it's very much in the lens of looking back at how, back in the day people saw the future, where it's not that different. It just includes some aliens, even though it's supposed to be like 100 years in the future. To us, future is completely very different. Everything's like antiseptic, or silver buildings, and spaceships everywhere, and lasers blasting everywhere. This takes a more realistic approach in the future. Theirs is they dress all the same, similar to the 20s fashion, tie, maybe a hat, lots of black clothing. But the buildings are much bigger, more reflect cubism design. Biplanes come through and through next to the buildings. They have high elevate trains, something that we definitely have now. And they're starting to get into robotics that can replicate humans perfectly. Something that is bleeding edge for us right now. We're still trying to experiment with. This movie, they got it done, and they couldn't ask for any more. Now, Freder is our title. Well, he's our main character. He's the strapping white dude with blonde hair and chiseled jaw, and he saves his damsel, who is real Maria. The reason I say real Maria, there's a whole plot of the villain, I guess, wanting someone that he loves back. So he gets a robot from this dude, Dr. Rotwang. He makes a robot. He also has a robot hand that's covered with a glove, much like Luke Skywalker in Return as a Jedi. And he builds his robot. Is able to put all the personality and looks over this weird robot design. I guess maybe some piece of her imprinted onto this robot. I'm sorry. I had to keep bringing up that dumb Matrix line, but anyway. But yeah, it just goes on to her, and then she starts acting evil, running amok. She becomes like a false idol for the working class. The working class is, very much how, it's like the worst nightmare, or how, a communist would see the world, because you have these big capitalists like Fener's father, Fenerson, who live lavish lifestyle. You know, they get everything they want. Working class are fucking slaves in this. They have to like do heavy machinery work that involves like moving the arms on this weird light up clock. That was weird design. But yeah, I think they have like serial numbers on their hats, and you know they have no rights. Everything that they do is to power the city that Finnearson founded and made popular and had all this architecture put in, all this production. And you know the way it looks in this film, you gotta keep it in context of the time, is fucking phenomenal. Concerning the time it came out, this came out 90 years ago. There was no such thing as, you know, computer graphics. There was none of that shit. They had to use models and paintings. So, and the fact they're able to make it look anywhere near real is a technical achievement. Even though, you know, a lot of people really love this film today, when it first came out, a lot of people weren't so too sure about it, and it definitely didn't do well. You know, financially, you know, they didn't. They barely made a fraction of the money they put in. I think they put in. What was it? 26 million or thousand Deutschmarks. They only made, you know, 1,000 or 1 million Deutschmarks, which, you know. Oh, this movie is German, and you know that's why I was saying German names, because the whole cast is German. A lot of the performances are very varied. I would say that that's one thing to keep in mind. Fendir has moments, and then he just goes into like crazy mode where he's just like overacting. Same thing with his love interest. When she's playing the robot or she's scared, she's just falling overwhere and like grabbing at her collarbone and just losing it, or swinging her arms and shit. I'm like, what the hell is going on in this movie? And I thought that a lot watching this, because I absolutely adore the symbolic concepts they have about, you know, the proletariat, you know, upsetting the apple cart of, you know, the rich capitalists, you know, ruling everybody. The concept of false idols. I even enjoy somewhat of the religious parallels, like they bring up the Moloch, which is like a bull that consumes children, is actual like statue thing, kind of like in Temple of Doom, and it kind of looks like that scene where they have, you know, the Kali Mara type shit. They also go into the whole story of the Tower of Babel that Maria says as, you know, regular human, because she's trying to give these poor workers, you know, something that's not depressing because their lives are horrible. Now, other films have definitely done, you know, the symbolic nature of, you know, rich against poor, and poor should rise up in some way. You know, it's this recurrent theme. Just because it's repeated doesn't mean it's wrong. Just the way that you do it. Like, well, after I watched this, I started thinking a lot about Wizard of Oz, which is based off a book. And the book, you know, has a lot of parallels to the Gilded Age of the late 1890s. You know, the Tin Man is symbolic of the American workers in factories. Scarecrow, representative of, you know, the farmers, the people that work in the countryside. The Cowardly Lion represents, you know, politicians, more specifically a Pacific Democrat from that time, but overall he represents, you know, Cowdy, politicians that don't do anything to affect the economic change or, for people's social stability. Uh, and the wizard himself of Oz, is symbolic of the celebrity politician, much like a president, where a lot of things they do is a charade, just to put on a show, but when worst comes to worst, they don't have anything to back up on, which for some presidents I would say definitely applies. Some I would say applies a little less, but in that time, that probably couldn't be further from the truth, because everything was going to shit. Children were being exploited to make shoes, and meat quality was terrible, and so much shit was just really bad. Even though economically, it said that it was supposed to be good, and the difference here is years later in Germany and Eastern Europe, they had just experienced a war. Germany was forced to pay, for damages that weren't caused by them. And the prospect of the capitalists and, the working class have to be the same and will rise up for what we need, was very galvanizing. And that's one of the reasons why when this film was released in Germany, after it was shown once for its full runtime, it wasn't pretty much ever until later, like special DVD releases. I don't think that the official release hasn't been, restored and brought back until the 2000s. That's the version I saw. And I think it is good to have it, it is bad to have it. Because, the whole symbolic nature, I love that. But you do, I'm not just saying this because of my sensibilities as, very young man in the modern age, but you do feel the length. And even critics back then said it feels too long, and I can totally understand that. Even with that cut out, they still thought that way, because I think one of the big reasons is the characters themselves. If you take away the symbolic nature, the characters don't have much of anything. Like the villain, he's my favorite. The actor playing him is my favorite performance out of this whole film. He accepts that he was doing wrong, and he gets to shake hands with the leader, one of the leaders of the galvanizing group of the proletariats, and it's a sweet ending. And so he gets a little bit of an arc. The main character gets an arc himself, I guess, even though it would have been better to show him as an asshole from the very beginning, but his change just felt like it had to be there for story purposes. And it's interesting to show him in, like, starting off son of the big capitalist. He has everything to his whim, but he just dropped with information about the sadness, and he just immediately goes to it. He doesn't really seem like he has a moral quandary other than, well, we need to fix this, and I will go up to my dad, and yada yada yada, and I'll become the hero of this piece. His romance with regular Maria, not Robot Maria, I'm sorry. There are things that I really enjoy about this movie, things that I don't. This is one of the things I don't. The romance is bland. There's several scenes in this movie where he ends up with a hallucination just to get to the next scene and play with the audience. I don't like any of those hallucinations. I mean, it was fun to show the second one how they did it, you know, just visually, but as a story, it did not work for me. Also, when Robot Maria, now has the face of regular Maria and can replicate her, we just get the same actress and she just acts a little different. She ends up going to a place called Shueras, I guess. It's kind of like, a, you know, a bar casino with a lot of rich people, and she like does like a strip dance, and the men just ogle after her. Like they're ridiculously thirsty. Yeah, I don't know if I needed that at all. I mean, I know it sets up, religious parallels, but yeah, at the same time, that could have been a good time to get more character out of, our hero. Grot, he was bad, and it's nice to see him at the finale, but I don't care about him at all. I don't even remember what happened to Right-Wing. I just saw the movie, and that's bad. Where sometimes the movie feels jumbled with plot points. It's just like, well, we need to get to the ending. Forget all the other shit. Don't mind it. I mean, I'm saying once again, this movie technically is one of the best achievements in film history for the time period. It has strong symbolism. It is still relevant today, understanding social hierarchy class, very much, how films or, properties like Hunger Games do it, or Elysium, still use the science fiction elements. But yeah, great symbolism, but weak characters for the most part. There's also a part towards the end where there's flooding and the kids are going to die. I feel like I should care, but I don't. And that's sad for me to say. I mean, clearly I know separation of fiction and real events. These aren't real kids dying, and I don't think any kid dies. But yeah, I mean, it does more right, I would say, than it does bad. The bad things are that it's not that engaging, but it is in some parts still fun to watch, and also just understanding that maybe I wasn't that enthralled. I don't care if it's black and white, but maybe I wasn't that enthralled because it's a silent film, and I was watching the German version with English subtitles, and sometimes the English subtitles wouldn't work in the format I was watching it on, and I would like miss points, but I still wouldn't care that much. I'm gonna give it a C+. I was thinking maybe I would give it a B-, but then I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not completely comfortable with that. I still suggest, if you are, lover of film and you love the silent era, you are obsessed with science fiction and understanding, how everything came to be. Or if you're just a fan of Fritz Lang, watch it. Other than that, it's fine. I was kind of hoping that it would blow me away, but whatever. Father Critics, I love it.